Hi, I'm Michelle Olivier, and you're listening to Hey, I Want Your Job, the podcast that looks at amazing jobs and what it takes to get them. Welcome to Hey, I Want Your Job. And today I have with me Eric. And I have so many questions for Eric. And he has one of those jobs that I think we have all had a moment where we went, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go get Eric's job. So, Eric, what is your job title?
Simply owner, I guess, is what you could
Okay.
say.
But what do you do, Eric?
What do I do? I have a luxury pontoon charter business that's changing to a luxury boat business.
And I feel like as soon as I heard that the first time, I immediately thought Shawshank Redemption, right? Andy Dufresne on the beach with the boat, screw it to the world. Like, is that kind of how this went down? You were like, 1 minute high-powered Wall Street tycoon, next minute, screw it, I'm gonna get a boat and move to Florida. Is that like, how did we get
There's
here?
there's some parallels. I would say it's more of a I got tired of doing what I was doing type of deal, and I needed a change, a dramatic change, something completely different. I remember the thought I had that day was I want to do something that requires a little bit of handwork, a little bit of dirty work. I got tired of sitting at the computer all the time. And it dawned on me, my wife had asked me one day, she said, why not just take what the dream that you wanted and make money with it? And I went, why don't I? And then from there, it was actually another opportunity that led me into it. And it just was one of those things where now I go, I can't believe I get paid to do this. This is
So
awesome.
there's this huge skeptic in me that is the moment you went to most people and we're like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pack in my 9 to 5. I'm gonna bet the mortgage on a boat. They would have literally laughed at you, then called you crazy, or been like, sure, Eric, we believe in you, buddy. And then the moment you walked out of the room, been like, he has lost his ever loving mind. Did you get any of that kind of you're crazy now feedback from people? Or was everybody like your wife and just super supportive and yeah, that makes total sense. You should go do that.
It was a little bit of a mixture. Some thought it was crazy and a big risk and everything, and others were like, you know what, this is what you've wanted to do. And granted, I live in an area that's surrounded by water.
Yeah. Being in
And
Florida helps. If you had
right,
had this dream in
yes,
Montana, I feel like it would have been a different response, right?
that would have been a little bit different. They would have been looking at me like, have you lost your sense here? What's going on?
Step 1, move to
Yeah,
Florida.
exactly, exactly. And for me, it was I would almost call it like a 1-2 punch because what started it is what got the thoughts going for me to do it, which was a launch and pickup service. So I would go launch the boat. It's called a launch when you put the boat in the water, and then when you
Okay.
take it out, you're picking the boat back up, put it on the trailer, etc. So I was doing that, which was a very unique niche, and I was doing it for
But
a
to
really
clarify for people who don't know, that's the pain in the ass part of taking a boat out. Like
yes.
everybody likes the part where you're having the party on the boat or fishing or what have you. Nobody likes the part where you've got to like back some shit up. And that's the part where you see, and now the boat has flipped over and there's a truck in the water. And if you don't know what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera.
And
So
that
that's
does
why that
happen.
service exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that happens more often than people realize because if you don't understand how to move a trailer around, they turn in opposites like this. So it doesn't just go back with your car, it turns in opposites. So if you want to turn left, you go right, that kind of thing. And it was definitely a niche and something, a solution to a problem, we'll say that. And I honestly had fun with it just because I realized that there's a skill set required, and I like those kind of challenges. But the problem I noticed with that is that it was a bit early. Sometimes if you're looking at an industry or you're looking at a product or a service and you're saying, hey, this is how I can solve it. This is where I would say, check the market first. Look and
Okay.
see how much demand there is for that. It might be something that could be a massive solution, a big solution to a big problem. But if it's early in the market, it's going to struggle. And this was one of those issues. It was early to the market. Now, there's one company in particular that I was doing this with, and it was great for them. The problem was I couldn't get it to expand to other areas of the market because people just didn't know what it was. They thought, oh, this is a great solution, but they weren't doing it that often. So then I went through this phase where I was going, okay, this might work in 5 years, but right now it's not working. I need a solution. And so the solution was, let's get a boat. And at that point, you know, my wife had been watching what was going on, and she was at that point she was totally supportive. When I made the initial transition, it was like, what are you doing?
Okay, so there was at least a moment where she thought you were crazy. That makes me feel
Yes.
better as a wife, because I was thinking I am definitely slacking. Because if my husband came to me and he was like, "Baby, I got a great idea. I'm gonna turn my passion for retro video games into a new thing," I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Our children need to eat." No.
Yes, that was that moment
Okay.
for
Oh,
me.
that makes
That
me.
was that moment for me.
Whew.
Her skepticism was through the roof. And so I had to show her, and you know, that went well. But then it came time. I did that for a good solid year, 18 months, somewhere in that
Okay.
area. But see, what it did for me was a stepping stone. I picked up a skill set I didn't have before, and I started learning, listening to other customers that were on these boats, watching the model. And so what I started doing is picking apart the model, the business model of it, saying, okay, what are the problems with it? There's the customer, ask them. So I went through a process of running, I don't know. When I say running, it means operating, using, launching, picking up, being on the water, like the whole part that goes into having a boat. So I did several hundred boats in that period of time, which gave me a lot of experience. I understood how boats run. I understood what to do with them in a problem. And then I started really understanding the customer's perspective. So my answer to it was, okay, I have the idea. I have the solution for it. And that's when everything started. And at that point, I still had a few people going, what are you doing? And then I had others going, dude, this is cool. Yes, you need to do this. You'll rock at this. And part of it's because of my background, the skill sets I've learned over the last 22 years. Being an entrepreneur helped, but I never thought that I could take something I wanted to do since I was 10 years old, and turn it into something.
Oh, I
And
love that
so
though.
to see it come to fruition, I remember the first time I was on a boat was at 10, and I had the thought one day I want to have a boat. But obviously at 10 years old, I had no idea what that would look like. But
Oh,
anyway,
that's fantastic. So just to clarify, so now that you have the boat, first of all,
yep.
do you go by Captain Eric? Because I have to say, that's what my assistant calls you, just so you know. She's, oh, you've got your call with
That's
Captain Eric
funny.
this morning. So in-house at ONH, you are officially Captain Eric in real life, or is that too cheesy?
I'm not, and there's two reasons to it. One
Okay.
is I don't yet have my license, which I'm in the process of.
Okay.
So legally, I wouldn't be called.
Legally, you can't marry anybody on your boat. That's not a thing.
Right, exactly. Actually, you know, funny note, I'm working with a wedding coordinator to do weddings on my boat.
Oh, cool.
And she also officiates. Just you caught that up in my mind. So that's an interesting thought. Think about that. Getting married on a boat on the water. Huh. So anyway, yeah, I'm in that process. It's a bit of a process to get that license, but especially juggling, operating the business and doing all those things. But it'll come hopefully this year. And then you can call me Captain Eric. And
Right.
I'll wait and I'll be like,
Let me know when we can officially call you Captain Eric. And I will let the team know that for the moment, we just got to revert to normal Eric. So just to be clear for our listeners and everything, what kinds of tours and services, like are these fishing trips? What are the services that you're offering with the boat? Obviously weddings to come, but for right now, what are the kinds of services you guys are offering?
very simple. We call them luxury cruises, okay?
Right.
And that's for branding purposes.
I like cruises. I'm your target demo. I feel like, yeah.
And it's not, and here's the reason for it, is because we have tons of fishing charters around here. We have tons of rental companies, lots of pontoon rentals, things like that. The way I had to differentiate myself and brand it and get the attention is the luxury market around here has been untapped I've been here 28 years, and as long as I can think, it's been untapped. So I wanted to brand in that area and say, look, for those of you, there's an area, a little bit deeper detail. There's an area close to where I live called, it's branded as 30A. Okay. Basically what it is, it's a road, a scenic road where you can drive along the beach and see the water and see multi-million-dollar homes. And it's a very affluent, luxurious area. And it's about maybe a 30-mile stretch, something like that. And so I wanted to hit that demographic because nobody else was in this area after doing my research. And so
Sure, that makes
that's
sense.
that's where my business name came in, 30A Boat Valet. Okay. I wanted to make it catchy. I wanted people to be able to remember it. I wanted people to look at the sign on my truck and say 30A Boat Valet and then walk away, repeat it to themselves because of the rhyme. So everything had a purpose. So I marketed to that area. And so that demographic likes luxury. They don't want to drive a boat themselves. They want to sit on the boat. They want to kick back, have some drinks, enjoy the time, listen to some. And so that was the market I started tapping into. And so we call them luxury cruises. We do hour-and-a-half dolphin cruises, 2-hour sunset cruises, all the way up to a 10-hour full day on the water. And basically what that looks like is there's a sandbar that's about 20 miles away from us. We go to that sandbar and the water looks like the Caribbean. It's transparent turquoise. You can see the white sand at the bottom of the water. There's some sea life that moves around, some dolphins and things like that. You go over there, you anchor the boat, and they just hang out all day.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and it's paradise. When you're there, it's almost like euphoria because you get off the boat, you sit down in the water, sky is blue, the other boats around, tropical music playing, you smell the coconut in the air. It's the most interesting thing. You're like, wait, where am I at? And you go, I'm in Florida. Are you kidding me? North Florida? And it just doesn't make sense to people until they're there. And so that's what we tapped into. So we do themed cruises and we do your normal cruises. But the thing that we do that others don't is we don't really have a minimum.
Okay.
So most rental companies will require like a 4, 6, or 8-hour minimum because they want the boat gone.
Mhm.
We do as little as an hour and a half, like I said. So we get a lot of business from that because people are like, I don't want to go on the water for 6 hours or 8 hours.
That's a lot of churn, though. Like, part of the reason they have those minimums is because you gotta get the boat back, you gotta clean it, you gotta prep it for the next, and the ROI and that churn, I would have thought, is low. Like, how do you keep your margins where they need to be?
Here's what it is. You charge for it, for one
Okay.
thing. Now, it's not super expensive, but it's right in that area of the right budget for those that don't want to be out in the water for that long. Now, I prefer to churn it because I want to get as many customers as I can. If I keep the boat on the water for 6 to 8 hours a day, that's only one customer.
Mhm.
If I can get the boat on the water an hour and a half, 10 times a day or 8 times a day, that's 8 customers. I'm gaining 10 times more customers than the other guy is. So
Sure.
I'm
But
expanding.
ultimately, you care less about customers and more about revenue, right? So, like, if those
Actually, the
8
opposite. For
okay, well,
me, it's the
talk
opposite.
me through talk me through that logic, because that's historic logic is the other way, right? That
Yep.
we don't care how many, if we have one customer and they wanna pay us $1 billion, freaking awesome, we'll take it. So, talk to me about the logic behind why more customers than revenue focus at this point.
Because more customers will take the brand long term. If I focus on all revenue, that's more short-term thinking for me, for my business. So what's going to happen is the person that's going to get one customer a day, they have to rely on that person to come back, especially if they're a visitor. So let's say they did an 8-hour cruise, 7 days a week. You got, what is that? 7 customers. Okay, it's simple math. You got 7 customers in that week. For me, in my average, I do 3 to 4 customers a day on average. So I've got multiple times more the customer base built out than they do. So when I get the return of business, I've got, let's say, 30 people coming back to me versus 7 people coming back to me. My customer base is expanding, therefore my revenue is actually increasing and multiplying at a faster rate than theirs is over the long run. So my focus is more on brand. I will make a short-term sacrifice to have the long-term effect because I know in a year or two, when that catches on and people realize that we do what they don't, or we'll do a 2-hour cruise instead of requiring them to be out for 6 hours, I'm not only actually generating more income from that, because typically boat rentals, their pricing goes down as the term goes up. For
Right.
me, the shorter the term, the more expensive it is if you look at an hourly basis. So what happens for me is my profit goes up because, for one thing, my maintenance and upkeep goes down, my fuel bill goes down, but I've gained more customers. My boat, it's a very efficient boat, granted, but I'll spend maybe $10 on gas for one of those cruises versus spending $50 to $100 on gas for longer cruise. And if I do those longer ones 3 times a day,
Mhm.
my gas bill is pretty high.
Yeah.
So if I do, you see what I'm saying? So it's opposites. It totally messes with your mind thinking about it from a standard perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I also like this idea that like you're building it's a long-term game that you build
Mhm.
for loyal customers this way because you're starting out. I get all of that. So, that makes sense to me. So, when you were setting up your business model at the outset, one of the things that is always difficult, and I know this personally as a small business owner myself, is putting a price tag on our time. And so when people ask me like really when I was first starting, people be like, "Ew, you charge how much?" And I'm like, Psh, "What you don't see is A, the 20 years that went into why you should ask me in the first place. So start there. But B, the fact that yeah, like you're paying for an hour of my time and that sounds amazing. And if I did this and had no other expenses and had 40 hours a week, 5 days, 4 months,
Yeah.
4 weeks a month, all of that, booked solid of this, yeah, I'd be making it rain. But that's not how it works. So
Nope.
you have to pay for the dead time and you have to pay for the advertising time and the admin time that went into just having the call and that kind of stuff. How it was complicated and pain in the ass for me, and I did not get it right for the first while. How
Mhm.
did you figure out where to set the value and price for your time? What did you do to get those numbers and figure out where to pitch that? Because
Well, the
especially with
first
those
thing is,
short churns, that's a big part
yeah,
of the cost, right? Is Eric.
the first thing I did is I spent a lot of time, a good year and a half, doing research without it wasn't purposeful
That's
in the
what I did wrong.
beginning. Yeah, it's like I was doing all this research and didn't realize that it had a purpose behind it. It was, I believe in, there's a phrase that I like to say. I didn't hear it from anybody. It just kind of came to me one day. I follow the breadcrumbs until I find the loaf. So I believe that when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, we are led into purposeful things, and there's a purpose to everything. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in things like that. I believe when you're walking the right path, things line up for you. And this is one of those things I was led into. And setting up, looking at values, I looked at the market first of all. And I looked and see what other boats and charters were doing. Looked to see what they were offering versus what I had in mind, and realized that what I was offering was actually more. Now, the balance that I had to learn, taking this into equation, was okay, what are people willing to pay? And are they going to see the same value I see? Which customers don't usually see the same value you do, which is the part that takes the longest to learn, because that's when you're learning your pricing. Tons of value in it because you did it, but the customer
Yeah.
doesn't see that because from their end, they're the consumer. And they're saying, why is this different than this guy over here? But if you differentiate it big enough and do the things others aren't willing to do that are very obvious in the marketplace, that's where the value comes in. And for me, what I did was I made it all inclusive. Okay. So I designed this model and this package deal where others weren't offering that. And so I did this, and then I just raised my price a little bit higher than the others.
Okay.
And when they saw that, when they see what's included, like the captain, where I cover the captain, they don't have to. That's where even some of the other charters are telling people. I remember one in particular. I was in a Facebook group. I commented, somebody asked for the price. I told them what the price was. And another captain came in, or charter, whatever it was. I don't remember now. He comments and he says, for a captain charter, it's like, people, do you understand how good of a deal this is? If you don't understand it, you don't get it. And then I ended up getting bookings from that because people realize that what it includes and all that stuff. So when people understand the value that it brings, you can put a price tag on that.
So I find though, and maybe you have seen this in your area, maybe not because we work very different spaces.
Yes.
Um, that as I have put up my prices over
Mhm.
time, that actually the caliber of my clients has correspondingly gone up. And I don't mean that like the clients I had at the beginning at lower prices were like bad people, or I don't
Sure.
mean that at all. What I mean
Right.
is that the more they are investing in me and my services, the more they value those things. And
Yeah.
so when you pay $500 for an hour or for a session with my lead resume writer and partner to get your resume together, you come to that shit prepared, Eric.
Right. Right.
Whereas when we were selling it for like 250 to 300, people were fobbing us off. They didn't do their homework. And we were just
Yep.
like, this is ridiculous. Like the amount of time that it took us from an admin perspective to make things happen because the customer wasn't valuing it
Right.
the same level was amazing. And I know from the little bit that I know about things close to your area, like my mom had a beach house
Okay.
for
Yep.
a long time, and it was the same kind of thing that like when we did some work and we fixed it up and we put the price up and we put the price up, suddenly people were taking a lot better care of the house. That when the
Yep.
price was lower, people were just like trashing it. And
Yep.
do you find that in your field that that same thing tracks, that actually being less expensive makes people less inclined to value, to take care of it? Do you have more last minute cancellations? Do you have all the kind of bullshit that goes with people not valuing a service?
I do. I see the same thing. And that's part of the reason why I price to the luxury market. Those in the area that's about 20 miles from us that do what I call the cheap rentals. They're old beat up boats and they just want to get on the boat or whatever. And they also trash this stuff. I saw that firsthand, even with another company that was trying to do what I'm doing now. They were making an effort with that, but the mistake they were making, and here's my one of my differentiators, is having a captain versus not having a captain. That's why I call it a charter. I don't call it a rental, because to
Right.
me,
It sounds bougier.
yes,
So
exactly. Well, when you say rental, what immediately comes to mind?
Avis, right? Like dollar a rental
Right.
car. I totally
Budget.
agree. If my family was traveling and there was one service that was a rental boat and one that was a chartered luxury, I can tell you straight away, I'm going to look at the chartered luxury before the rental, thinking that is
Yes.
more my vibe, because I am not about to eat somebody's 7-Eleven sandwich on the back of a boat.
Yes.
That is not ever going to be me. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
know my place in this world, Eric, and that is not it. So that then part of part of doing what you're doing does require partnerships, right? Because you're not also secretly a chef and secretly like a sommelier and all that kind of thing. So how did you build those partnerships within, how did you choose your partners for things like catering, for things like wine supply, activity leads, those types of things?
Well, that's something that that's actually in a future model, what we're getting into in the next year or two. What we do right now is we've simplified that. Really, the partners we have are captains right now. We don't
Okay.
employ captains, we actually subcontract captains. BYO,
Okay.
exactly. And part of the reason for that is we're about to get into the yacht area. Okay,
Okay.
so what we did is, the reason I chose pontoons to get into is it's the fastest way to get the business going, because pontoons are very popular, very high in demand. But what I did is went kind of several steps up into the luxury market, even with the kind of boat, the kind of pontoon I have. Everybody says it looks like a hot rod. It looks like a hot rod, feels like a Mercedes. And there is that level in the pontoon market. You have your granddaddy's pontoon that goes 10 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, has a little motor on it. Then you have my boat that'll do 43 miles an hour, has a full shaded deck, LED lighting inside and out. It's red and black. It's got plush seating, plush flooring, Bluetooth stereo that thumps pretty good. And we can put 10 people on it, and it rides like, I can't explain the ride to you. You hit waves and you don't really feel it.
Oh, wow.
Whereas other boats, they move around, they spray you with water and all that stuff. That was the easiest way for me to enter the market to get where I'm going. And where we're going is yacht charter. In the next couple of years, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing trips down to the islands and things like that. But that's a couple of years down the road. I had to get something that was going to get me in the market right away, but still hit that luxury vein. So that's what we did. As far as partners go, like I said, it's sub captains. And what we do is we do some customized things where, for example, we did a corporate outing last year, had 30 people. So what I did is I got a couple other boats together that are friends, other charters. We had 3 luxury pontoons out there, help with catering the food. Basically, it's a referral type of thing. So we have collaborations we work with.
Sure.
And that's how we do it. It's very simple. And it's funny, 3 boats in a line, all going out to the same place, and they train, follow each other, and it looks cool. It was one of those kind of deals, but yeah, that's how we do it.
So one of the things you talked about earlier was the cost of gas. And that makes me think about one of the things that's been a really hot issue lately globally, which is the environmental effects of tourism, and especially the rise of things like ecotourism, etc. My first question is, from a customer perspective, do you get a lot of questions, or do people seem concerned about green credentials with your services? Do you get asked about that at all? Nope, never.
No, we don't.
They just want to know that it's bougie and you're good.
Pretty much. Well, one of the things for me is I had mentioned the efficiency of my boat. That's a great business practice also because it helps with expenses. But for example, we love our environment around us. And we give you an example of that, our dolphin cruise, right? There's an area we go to that has a pod of about 40 dolphins. There's babies, teenagers, moms and dads, uncles and aunts, all swimming around. We have schools of stingrays that come in the summer and fall. We get 3 different species of stingrays. We've had manatees back in there. When we see things like manatees, for example, I was about to launch my boat one day for some customers. 6 manatee come right up by the dock. So everything stops, everybody stops and says, hold on a second, everybody, don't go in the water right now. Exactly, that's what it was like. It was a bunch of locals. It was me and a bunch of locals. We called the local, authorities, wildlife authorities, had them come out. They were in a big migration. They were getting out of the red tide that was down in South Florida, which is red tide is an algae, affects your respiratory system. And what happened was we just gave them time and they eventually made their way out of the way. They were trying to get into a larger body of water and they weren't familiar with this area. We've never had manatees in these areas up in these canals. And so there was something that they were, trying to get away from. And they got their way out of the way, and then everybody's like, okay, let's go back in and start the activity, because we're very conscious of not affecting the wildlife around there, because it's its ecosystem, but we love to look at it and we view from a distance, and sometimes they'll come up and play with us. We have dolphins that'll come up and play with the boat and swim with us and swim in the wake. You have a wake on a boat, you create it basically. And dolphins will come up behind us and they'll start jumping like this in the waves that we make. So they like to play with you too. So I'm like, be nice to them, they'll be nice to you. So
that's so cool. I think I am a big believer in ecotourism, just on a personal, I get really jazzed about it. I will say that as, again, potentially target demographic, I would be excited about an organization that bragged about eco-friendly practices as part of their branding, because I think that I think it's important that we're starting to understand the impact that if you're going to go and have a picnic on a beach, what are you doing to make sure that nothing gets left behind? The same kind of rules that we have with our national parks and those types of things. And I think that having that awareness, personally, I think that, again, as a customer, I'd be excited about that. But I'd love to hear that as a business owner, even if you're not shouting that it is already a part of what you're doing. Because I think that the tourism industry gets some really bad press, because we all picture like the giant cruise ships coming in. We've all seen the pictures of like the wake of all of the sewage and debris and stuff that follows a cruise ship. It is nasty. And so when you hear about water tourism, you think about that, you think about drunken yahoos on jet skis. You have an image problem in the press, right? Not to say that people don't still enjoy your services, but I think that it is really encouraging for me to hear that those things are, it sounds like more of the exception rather than what's happening on the day to day. Would you say
Mhm.
that's accurate, or is that sort of something that is true of you and the other folks that you run with at like the higher end? If we went to the area that is the rental section, I forget which area you said it was earlier, is that not what I would find? They'd be like, you want to leave your Coke cans on the beach, leave your Coke cans on the beach, or
Yeah, you're going to find that more because those companies were much more private than they are. I'll put it that way. And that's where the difference is. They're about volume. They're trying to churn boats. They're there for the money of it. So they have, for example, one of them over in that area, they have what, 80 or 90 boats in their fleet. They will send people out on their boat, just go out there, bring your own beer, whatever. And they're budget rentals. They're a lot for what they are, and they go out there, and that's where you find beer cans left on the beaches. You find trash left. The boats are trashed and a mess, food all over them. Because these people go out there and bring their kids, bring their friends, whatever. You get a boat that's rated for 10 people, and there are 15 people on it. There's actually a beach area there. It's called Noriego Point, and it's white sand. It's beautiful. It's right by the ocean. There's actually two sides of it. There's the ocean side and there's the bay side of it. It's not huge, but it's big enough where multiple boats can go, check it out. When I've been over there, what gets irritating to me is I hate littering on the beach because I understand how our ecosystem works here. And they have trash cans on these beaches. So when you're done with your trash, you can go 15 feet away from you and put your trash in the trash can. A lot of these people don't. We avoid those areas when we have customers on our boats. We have other areas that we go to that actually, one of them, for example, is an island and it's got a nature preserve. So they can actually go stand on the beach and they can see exotic birds, sea turtles, things like that hatching. They're not allowed to touch them. You can't go in those areas. Obviously, it's prohibited. They'll get fined massively. It's like a $5,000 fine to mess with those things over here.
as it should.
Yes, agreed. So, you anchor right off of there and you can sit back and relax and watch the wildlife. That's something I love to do. Like, for example, we love the mountains too. We love the ocean. We love the mountains, two opposites. And we enjoy nature.
Mhm.
And we would like to keep it that way. Now, granted, don't misunderstand me. I do love development and economic growth. But at the same time, I also enjoy wildlife. I like to see it preserved. I like to see the animals in their natural environment. And like I said, I couldn't say it enough. I hate seeing littering on the beach because I see it a lot down here.
Yeah, I bet.
So the way I get around that is, for one, being private makes a big difference because most of those they're much larger companies. They've built a huge fleet and they're not changing. That's the problem. They're not changing to the times. It's get as many boats out as possible. If you have a pulse and your eyes are open, you can go rent the boat. You're not. So it's just a different game for us. For example, my main captain grew up in this area. He knows more about the wildlife around here than anybody I've heard. He knows where the dolphins are. He knows where all those things are. He knows what to avoid, what to go to. And so it gives the customers a great experience because they see a clean environment wherever they go. And that's one thing we pay attention to.
That was a great answer. And I think that I love all of the things that you said about that. So that was why nothing to interrupt or add. Like, I just love that you're making that's what ecotourism is, right? It's
Yeah.
making the natural ecology. It's making what is there the point of the tourism, and we leave it
Yes.
unspoiled, and then we get to come back next year and see the
Yeah.
new baby turtles.
Right.
And so,
Exactly.
like, if you leave the
Look,
turtles alone, they will make new babies every year.
yes, yes. And we get that. It's actually pretty cool to watch when it's that season. You can go out to the beach and see actually there's multiple beaches where it happens, but you can watch the baby sea turtles go in the water. It's pretty cool.
That beach house of my mom's was in a turtle nesting area, and so the
Oh,
whole
okay.
family used to
Gotcha.
go and sit out and watch the little turtles.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
that's pretty
amazing.
neat.
Yes, it's great. So yeah, no, I get it. And I think that I hope that as we get more education and people understand better the impact of their choices, that you'll have people wanting to take more personal responsibility for not being a jerk, right? Like, even
Yeah.
though there's not a rule, or even though your charter operator doesn't tell you you can't throw your beer can over the side, maybe you should just not be a dick.
Exactly.
Floating that out there
Look,
as an idea.
look, here's an easy solution. Have a trash can on the boat. That's what we do.
Or recycle, Eric.
That works too. That works too. Look, I'll admit, I'm not as big of a recycler because I have to put more thought into it. And I don't want to have to put more thought into more things than I have to, but we are responsible with our trash at least. So it's better
I
than not.
I will tell you again, as a customer, I would probably pay a 20% bump for a company that was expressly green or eco-friendly in their practices.
Okay.
So
I'm listening. I'm
might be
listening.
worth having a recycling bin on there. You know what I mean?
True.
This has been fascinating. One of the things I have not asked you that I ask everyone
Mhm.
is how do you answer and deal with it when people other than your lovely wife
Mhm.
ask you how much money you make?
I basically tell them because I'm not afraid to.
Okay.
And so if anyone's wanting to know, one boat on our operation does about, it fluctuates depending on the month because of the way the seasons work here, but it fluctuates anywhere from 25 to 60,000 a month for one pontoon boat if it's in the right market. As you get more boats, that increases, and that's also why, touching on the point earlier about churning the boat multiple times a day, the way I look at it is also different than everyone else, which is I don't focus on how many bookings I get. I focus on how many hours the boat's on the water. If I have the boat on the water 12 hours a day, I'm maximizing my revenue. And that also is why we pick up at multiple locations. So we don't require the customer to come to us. We actually go to the customer. We've picked up at private docks in very large homes. We've picked up at VRBOs and Airbnbs that people rent on the water. We've picked up at restaurants, hotels. So we have multiple places that we can get to because we can get in places that other boats can't also. So that's also part of touching on the ecotourism, touching on being responsible, touching on the luxury. So it hits all those points. And I just totally lost my train of thought. So I'll pass it back to you.
But I hear that, Eric, and my brain just immediately goes to that's freaking genius. I would be talking to all of because there's a shit ton of the bougie restaurants and hotels right on the water that have a dock. I would have an ongoing relationship with those management being like, hey, let's sell a special like sunset cruise. They have dinner with you. They can take a bottle of champagne to go, drink that on the pontoon. We'll go watch the dolphins or whatever it is out at that hour of the day. I don't think dolphins are super active at night, but you would know better than me. And they can enjoy the pretty water, and I will take them back to their hotel as part of the service. Is that something like you said paying? So I assume this means that I am not as smart as I think, and you have already done all of this, and that's already a thing that you do.
Yes, the short answer is yes. So
Well, then you're very clever, Eric.
thank you. Here's what, just tell my wife that. Here's part of what I do. I'm involved in about 50 local Facebook groups that range from 500 members up to, I think the largest one has 134,000 members. Okay. And these are property rentals, we'll put it that way. Property, short-term rentals, vacation rentals, local businesses, restaurant, activities groups, all these things. I'm very heavily involved in all of them. In fact, where most of my time goes is, I don't know, 6 to 8 hours a day is posting and being active in these groups. It takes a lot of grunt work to do this. Because again, it goes back to my model is completely different than everybody else. So I had to do things differently than everybody else, which meant work. I work with a luxury concierge company called Inspirato. Some of the reviewers may know what that is. For those that don't, it's a subscription-based luxury concierge service. It costs a minimum of $600 a month. And those that join, those subscribers, they call up their concierge and have them arrange their vacation for them, whether it's activities, places to eat, et cetera, et cetera. That is in one of the most affluent areas in our market. It's called Rosemary Beach. And so their customers call them and they say, hey, set something up for me. We'd like to go on a boat. So then this gal calls me up or contacts me and says, okay, here's what I need to arrange, blah, blah, blah. So we make arrangements. And So that's an example of a concierge service. We have restaurants that refer us to the best coffee shop in town that closes at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't understand why.
It's
I
not usually
know,
a nighttime beverage. And
but they
also
do it in
work-life
that.
balance, Eric.
What's work-life balance? That's
It's
another note we'll have to cover sometime because I
I
like.
see a lot of memes about it. I hear it's a thing.
I hear it's a thing too. I believe that, just to touch on that real quick, because you picked one of my things is, if you're in a family business, especially, business is a part of you. You can't separate you from you. If you have all these facets to yourself, that's still you. So I don't think there's a balance. I think there's a way you make it happen. Now, I still struggle with this because I'm so
Say,
focused on what I'm doing, but try
it
to
sounds
get
like I'm
kids
hearing you're into
involved.
the argument from something you and your wife fight about a lot.
No,
I feel like she has a different perspective. That Eric sometimes you to
she
not be on the boat.
yeah, that's really the hard part. Is I love being on that boat. It's so awesome. I
I
bring
feel
your
you.
mom with me, actually.
My kids often, so over Christmas, I was supposed to take a bunch of time and did not. And literally, my kids came and stood by my desk. I'm like, Mama,
Yeah.
are not supposed to be working today. And I was like,
Yes, I get that too. I did
all
the
right,
same thing.
that's
I'm
fair.
guilty.
Let's go make some cookies.
Right, yeah. We actually just
All
got a
right.
ping pong table, so now I have an excuse to be like, okay, I don't want to work for a little bit. We were on the thing for like 2 hours last night. I'm like, I can't believe I sweated from playing ping pong. This is stupid. This isn't supposed to happen. I'm sitting there going like this.
Mine are
Get
3 and
off my
5,
sweat.
so there's not a lot of, like, sport that's a real, like, challenge yet, even for me, and I am not a sporty spice. So, yeah, right now, it's all pretty doable, but yeah, I feel you, I feel you. So we are almost out of time.
Okay.
What have we not talked about that you wanna make sure to talk about?
Oh, let's see. We're a year-round business. How about we talk about that? Because a lot of the businesses around here are not year-round. They actually
Sure.
close down till March.
Yep.
This is something I've been really hammering hard on. And it's not just about me in this case, it's about the whole area.
Beachside communities are always hit hard in the winter, for sure.
Yes, they are. I'll give you an example. When I moved here a long time ago, yes, it was absolutely seasonal. There was no one here 6 months out of the year. Wintertime, you'd see 2 cars on the road. Sometimes I miss those days where I could actually get where I want to go first. Second, get where I want to go and the time I know I'm going to get there. 10 minutes for a 5-minute or 5-mile drive. In the summertime here, you're going to be 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's picked up massively. We get over 27 million visitors a year in a 50-mile
Holy
radius.
cow.
It's nuts. And to give you an example, when I first moved here, we were at 12,000 population. We're now at 85,000. And we're getting close to that 100,000 mark very quickly. So economic growth, that's what it comes down to. And economic growth helps.
Crazy economic. That's, oh my
It's
God, that's so many
insane.
visitors.
And that's why the boat market around here is growing so much. Real estate around here is growing massively. Every market possible is growing. And so the thing that I've been trying to hit on is that it's not seasonal. There's a lot of areas in this country that used to be seasonal and they're not seasonal anymore. And so it's the thing we didn't talk about would be growth, economics. And this area, now you said, where's the property at? You said your VRBO?
So my mom's VRBO is on the
Texas coast. Okay. So you will at some point probably be affected by this traffic, because I think there's a lot more areas, like I said, like ours, that are growing massively. And part of it is due to those that are moving out of certain states. I think the southeast is going to go through a pretty massive growth spurt, and that all affects these areas like our town and towns that VRBO is in, because people, they want to escape from things that they're dealing with, which is why, for example, my business took off during COVID.
Okay.
It's been because everybody wanted to get out of the house.
Yeah.
The only thing they could do is go on the water.
Got it.
And the
It's
business took
outdoor,
off.
it feels safe. That makes sense to me. Sure.
Exactly. It's been weather and storms. That's what hurts. That's what hurts the most, because when you get lightning around here in Florida, it's serious.
Yeah.
When we
Texas is
get,
the same.
yeah, and in the area we live in, these little storms pop up out of nowhere. Literally, we can have a storm that will downpour rain, have severe lightning for 2 hours, and that storm grew in 30 minutes because of, I mean, we're on a peninsula.
Mhm.
And so the way that air flows, cold air and hot air collide all summer long like this, and it creates these storm cells that are highly intense. I got caught in one actually when I was on a boat.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't a fun experience. The boat I
That
had, yeah, it was pretty scary. I had
Were
no
you on a
signal.
charter at the time, or was it just you?
I was operating a charter. I just dropped customers off,
Okay.
and I was on my way home, which was normally a 15 to 20-minute ride, ended up being an hour and a half because of one
Oh,
of these
wow.
storms popped up over top. Basically, the clouds enclosed on me. It had fog in it too, and it was raining so hard, all you could see was just white 50 feet around me. So
Wow.
I actually went through some pretty serious stuff in that storm.
Yeah.
A little bit of an emotional time,
That
because I had no GPS, no radar. My phone signal went out, so I couldn't even check Google Maps and see where my location was.
My God. I feel like I've
Um,
seen this movie, Eric, and it does not go well. It definitely does not
yes,
end with us on a Zoom recording
yeah,
a podcast. So thank goodness for that.
I was afraid of that day. It was one of those times where it was mentally challenging. Basically, the way I figured out to navigate was by wave direction. And I knew I needed to be going east to get home. And the waves, last time I saw land, waves were coming out of the south and hitting my right side. So my thought was, I kept telling myself, don't panic, because it was downpouring rain. It was cold. I was shaking. I couldn't feel my hands. Everything was numb. It was a pretty interesting position to be in. And so I'm like, okay, what do you use water is better than most people around here? What do you know? What was the last thing you saw? You knew you're going east. Waves have been hitting your right side. So just keep the waves on your right side till you see that channel marker. Channel marker is basically a reflector in the water to let you know what side you're on and which direction you're
For
going.
exactly this kind of a situation. That's why they're there.
Exactly. Unfortunately, where I was at, it was enclosed by fog. So I had to get as close as possible to be able to see it. And so I was able to, navigate my way back. Took an hour and a half, which it turned out I was about I was 10 minutes from home, but I couldn't see anything. So
Wow.
it took me an hour and a half. And here we are. So storms.
It ended well. And I think that is a great takeaway, that you are obviously a safe person to have on all of these cruises. And I think it's a good note to
Yes.
end our conversation on. Eric, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. All of the contact details for booking your cruises and everything will be in the show notes. Really encourage people to reach out, since you're doing things the right way, and it sounds like it would be a great time. And if I can ever unplug long enough to take my family on vacation, I will definitely come down and see you. We are actually
Awesome.
headed to Florida in October. One of our family friends, that is, like, my kids call him uncle, works for the mouse. So
Okay.
we're going to visit him.
Nice.
The children
Nice.
are excited.
Good time of year too.
Um,
It's a good time of year too.
yes. Oh, because this is when he told us to come. Like, all things are orchestrated here, Eric.
Yes. Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It was great being on the show. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Hey, I Want Your Job. For more information on how you can get your own awesome job, visit ONH Consulting at www.onhconsulting.com. We offer incredible resumes, no-nonsense career advice, and real-world tips for landing a job in today's market. Check us out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Insta for more insider information. Soon, you'll be hearing us say, I'm Michelle Olivier, and hey, I want your job.